Pulsar Studio.
Video games are the youngest artistic medium, and since their emergence, they have managed to create great masterpieces that, despite being extraordinary, have opportunities for learning and improvement. This is Checkpoint, and today we're going to discover an example of it. Breath of the Wild is one of the most acclaimed and valued titles in video game history. It is one of the most influential events on the industry in the last generation, impacting and spreading to many creatives in the medium. The game is a masterpiece in design, and it is an excellent example to analyze and learn from. However, just as perfection does not exist in any artistic medium, neither does it exist in video game design, and Breath of the Wild is no exception, proving that even the most impressive works have areas of learning and opportunity for improvement. Despite the fact that all the mechanics used in the game were designed to guide the player through the experience, it is an act of stubbornness not to admit that, although they all serve a purpose, not all of them generate a totally harmonious and congruent experience. In Breath of the Wild, the designers decided to implement a durability mechanic on weapons that created a lot of conversation and controversy. The most common opinion goes straight to the conclusion: it is a bad mechanic, it must be removed. However, in game design, there are no such simple decisions. A mechanic cannot be removed without affecting other dynamics and systems or operations. It is normal that, as players, we do not stop to think about that. Most of the time, we have no idea what is happening behind the curtain and how it is that the gears that we know as mechanics are interacting to generate experiences in us. That is the secret in the art of game design, and we must give credit and trust to the masters of their craft. Zelda games have always been adventure games, with a bit of exploration. The novelty in this installment is a large open world, and every open world game faces the challenge of generating in the player the desire to explore, but giving freedom to choose where to go and what to do. However, not only do you need to give options to choose from, but also you need to give a dose of decision-making capacity, which are not the same thing. Having options to choose creates a feeling of freedom, but the ability to make decisions generates agency and empowerment. Freedom and agency are essential to an open-world experience, but inadequate and alternate doses, to avoid breaking the experience by falling into a sea of infinite and incongruous possibilities. The world they created for Breath of the Wild is huge and full of things to see, mechanics to experience, and situations that emerge surprisingly. And that's not surprising, because that's the heart of a good open world. The world of Hyrule has already proven to be very rich in content and diversity, even in smaller, more linear experiences. For this reason, designers cannot afford to leave exploration slowly in the hands of the player. It is necessary to guide them in some subtle and imperceptible way. Increasing life and stamina by finding and beating sanctuaries is not enough to encourage full exploration of the world. In addition, health points and stamina are one of the ways to regulate difficulty, so it is up to the player to decide how much they want to increase these parameters or not. The durability mechanic is crucial to encourage exploration of the world, that when the player finishes the introductory zone, it is completely open to roam at will. In Zelda games, combat is very simple, mainly due to accessibility. There must be a way to reduce the possibility of breaking the experience for most players, avoiding that absolutely all enemies and challenges can be overcome at ease. But at the same time, allowing progress without obviously delimiting which places should be explored first and which ones later. The durability and strength of the weapons is proportional to the difficulty to eliminate the enemy with which they are obtained from. With few items and abilities available, Link can only face weaker enemies without much challenge, being able to get only weak weapons at first, which break easily. If the weapons did not have durability, the combination with a simple combat style will cause the player not to worry about getting more weapons, and once they manage to get a weapon little stronger than the most basic one, they will use that same weapon all the time. This being the case, the player will be called only to the most striking points in the landscape and the points indicated by the story in the map, forgetting to explore the rest, wasting the rich and emergent experiences of the kingdom. In addition, weapons are part of the representation of that diversity and content of the world. The second factor that combines with durability and plays an important role is limited inventory space. If the weapons have little durability but there is an unlimited inventory space, it is inevitable to fall into the dynamic of grinding, in which the player spends an unpleasant time collecting as many weapons as possible in the same area. This dynamic is not compatible with a game like Zelda, where combat is not the main experience and there are no other systems such as leveling up and acquiring skills. The designers close the circle by making use of an historical and narrative element from the Zelda universe, the Koroks. These are the new form of the Kokiri and are found throughout the kingdom, hidden in small puzzles. Each time one is found, the player is awarded with seeds that then can be exchanged for more inventory space when Link encounters the Korok named Hetsu in his way. So, we have that. The durability of weapons serves to keep the difficulty of the game balanced and to encourage killing enemies to obtain them. The limitation in the inventory means that the player cannot simply grind in one place and gather many weapons at the same time, having to keep looking for enemies periodically to be able to fill the inventory and get better weapons to help them to defeat stronger enemies. While the player travels the world advancing in her adventure and obtaining weapons, she must look for Koroks hidden in small puzzles to be able to expand her inventory and have more weapons at the same time, and thus find herself traveling to parts of the world that may have been lost otherwise. The problem arises when the functioning of the interaction between mechanics is based on discomfort as the engine for the player to execute that cycle without an obvious relationship with the narrative. The combination of limited inventory and low durability generates the uncomfortable effect that motivates the player to look for the Koroks to increase the inventory and solve the problem. Besides, there is a clash between the freedom that is given to the player and the function of the interaction between durability, inventory, and finding Koroks. Because the player can only redeem the seeds by interacting with Hetsu, who is available in specific places that can't be ignored if the player decides to just explore instead of following the progression of the story, in addition to the fact that the first encounter does not occur at the very beginning of the game. It can take up to few hours. It is certain that the developers did not plan for the frustration to be focused on the durability mechanic. Every designer hopes to create positive experiences. But it is also true that the art of designing a game, it is not only about creating impressive worlds and memorable stories. At its core, the creation of experiences is based a lot on creating less than optimal or problematic situations and giving the players tools to solve them, having experiences emerge in that process. But it is difficult for this to work if the problem is not linked to the narrative or vision of the game. What is clear is that just removing the durability in weapons would have a worse consequence than the current controversy and would kill the essence of having an open world. Also, the durability of weapons is not really the issue. But by understanding its purpose, it is possible to explore alternatives that fulfill the same function without making use of discomfort and frustration as motivator. Many times, the solution to these problems is found in the way the properties or mechanics that create them are labeled. For example, a video game that has an original price of $60 and is discounted to $49.90 is found more attractive than one that costs $45 base and has no discount, even if the first is almost $5 more expensive than the second, simply because one is labeled as a discount and the concept of discount is a positive thing. It is difficult to not assign a negative perception to the idea of durability, but perhaps if the same mechanic and function are used with a change of focus, the perception can be changed and the problem solved. Another alternative is to change the focus on inventory limitation, which is also perceived as a negative thing. In Ocarina of Time, the green tunic did not have the ability to resist fire or breathe underwater, and it still did not generate a negative feeling towards it. In the other hand, getting the red and blue tunics was a memorable achievement. The inventory will not have to feel negative if it was not presented as something under its potential capacity. It could be a game object such as a bag that for narrative reasons begins as a simple folded cork leaf, and which we can grow or change for an object better designed for that purpose that we can also visually appreciate and is obtained on the same way, collecting seeds, making a connection between the narrative and the development of the story with those mechanics which surely make a more positive effect. It is daring to propose the Zelda designers how to improve or fix something because they are the experts and masters in the craft of designing and creating extraordinary experiences. However, there is no doubt that, the sequel to the game, there will be some change focused on this. Perhaps the new title will make a turnaround and the element of world and exploration will not be the main pillar. Or perhaps they will dare to touch the world and fill it with activities and secondary missions that are the ones that motivate exploration. Sooner or later we will know. And for you, was the durability on the weapons frustrating or annoying? How would you improve or resolve that situation? Leave it in the comments below. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Checkpoint. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe and share this to keep discovering the art in making and designing video games. See you next time!